At 7:30 on the morning of September 18, 1944, Private First Class Arthur Jackson lay pressed against a jagged coral outcrop on the southern tip of Peleliu Island. The sun was already high and merciless, baking the white coral until it shimmered. Machine gun fire tore the air apart only yards from his face. Marines to his left fell where they ran. Some did not move again. Jackson was 19 years old. He had been on this island 3 days. He had not yet confirmed a single kill. In front of him stretched a half-moon line of reinforced Japanese pillboxes, 12 concrete fortresses embedded directly into the coral ridge. Each one housed anywhere from 5 to 35 defenders. 3 days earlier, the 1st Marine Division had landed expecting a short fight. General William Rupertus had promised his men the island would be secured in 4 days. Now, 70 days of fighting still lay ahead. On the first day alone, nearly 1,300 Marines had fallen on the beaches. The Japanese commander, Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, had changed the rules of battle. No more wild bonsai charges. No more suicidal rushes into American gunfire. Instead, he built a fortress underground. 10,000 defenders waited inside caves and concrete bunkers connected by tunnels stretching hundreds of yards. They let the Marines come to them. By the morning of September 18th, one Marine regiment had already lost 70% of its strength. 7 out of every 10 men who had landed with that regiment were dead or wounded. Now the 7th Marines, Jackson's regiment, had been ordered into the southern sector. Their task sounded simple. Clear the bunkers blocking the approach to the airfield. It was not simple at all. The pillboxes were built into the coral ridges with walls 3 feet thick. Each one overlapped the fields of fire of the next. Attack one position and 2 more cut you down from the sides. Grenades bounced harmlessly off the concrete. Bullets sparked and ricocheted. Men who rushed the firing slits died in heaps against the walls. Jackson's platoon had advanced only 200 yards that morning before everything stopped. One massive pillbox dominated the approach. Every movement drew a burst of fire. The platoon could not go forward. They could not go back. 3 Marines were already dead, lying in open coral where no one could reach them. Normally tanks or artillery would solve the problem. But tanks could not climb these ridges. Artillery could not fire without killing the Marines pinned in front of the bunkers. There was only one solution left. Someone had to cross 150 yards of open ground and destroy the bunker by hand. The mathematics were merciless. 10 seconds of running. At least 2 machine guns waiting. No man should survive that crossing. Jackson understood all of this. But he also understood something else. Every minute they stayed pinned down, more men would die. Waiting was only another way to be killed. Without asking permission, without speaking a word, Arthur Jackson loaded a fresh magazine into his Browning automatic rifle and stuffed his pockets with grenades. Then he stood up. The first bullets snapped past his head as he ran. The bar weighed nearly 20 pounds, but he fired it from the hip, sweeping the muzzle across the firing slit as he sprinted. He was not trying to hit anyone. He was trying to make them duck. Coral exploded around his boots. The air filled with the roar of Japanese machine guns. At 60 yards his magazine ran dry. He dropped behind a coral boulder, reloaded, and ran again. At 20 yards the geometry changed. The firing slit could no longer reach him. Jackson slammed himself against the blind side of the bunker and pulled the pin from a white phosphorus grenade. The grenade disappeared inside. The screaming began at once. Men burst from the bunker with their uniforms burning, ammunition belts exploding around their waists. Jackson cut them down as they ran. Smoke poured from the firing slits. But the bunker still lived. Another Marine ran up behind him carrying 40 pounds of plastic explosive. Jackson shoved the charge through the opening and ran. The explosion lifted the pillbox off its foundation. Concrete and bodies flew into the air. When the dust cleared, 35 Japanese soldiers were dead. Jackson stood, ears ringing, hands shaking. Ahead of him, 11 more pillboxes still fired into the Marine lines. He reloaded and walked forward. One by one, he hunted them. He crawled through blind spots, climbed onto bunker roofs, jammed his rifle down ventilation shafts, and emptied magazines into the darkness. He sprinted through narrow corridors where 2 bunkers could not bring their guns to bear at once. He killed men inside tunnels as they tried to counterattack from behind. Within 20 minutes 4 pillboxes were gone. His rifle overheated and jammed. His grenades ran out. He scavenged ammunition from the dead. He hand-loaded rounds into empty magazines with shaking fingers. The Japanese command realized what was happening. Runners moved through tunnels. Orders spread to concentrate fire on the lone Marine, tearing their line apart. When a counterattack of 40 soldiers emerged from the tunnels, Jackson and 3 Marines met them with rifles and grenades. They were almost out of ammunition when 3 platoons of Marines poured through the gap he had opened and crushed the counterattack in a storm of crossfire. By then 6 pillboxes were silent. The final strongpoint stood ahead in a triangle of concrete and rifle pits. 30 defenders waited inside. No artillery came. No planes came. Only 43 exhausted Marines advanced through the heat. Jackson led the center assault. Men fell as they crossed the open ground. Jackson reached the bunker first, threw grenades into the firing slits, climbed the roof, fired down the ventilation shaft until the screams stopped. He ran to the next bunker as bullets grazed his leg and blood soaked his trousers. By 9:33 that morning, the 12th pillbox fell silent beneath a burst of flame from a Marine flamethrower. Arthur Jackson collapsed against a coral boulder. In 90 minutes, he had destroyed 12 pillboxes and killed more than 50 enemy soldiers. He had broken the southern defensive line and saved his platoon. The corpsman dressed his wound. The bullet had missed bone and artery. 3 days later he was back in combat. He never spoke of it for decades. When the canopy opened, ground crews stared in disbelief as 2 pilots unfolded themselves from one cockpit. Marshall collapsed, unable to stand. The Merlin engine seized moments after shutdown. By morning the story had reached 8th Air Force headquarters. Priest had disobeyed orders. Twice. He should have faced court-martial. Instead, the case landed on the desk of General James Doolittle. Doolittle read every report. He understood the danger of encouraging such rescues. But he also understood what Priest had saved. After 3 days, he made his decision. On September 21, 1944, in front of the entire group, Doolittle pinned the Distinguished Service Cross on Royce Priest's chest. Then he told him quietly that what he had done was the bravest and the most foolish thing he had seen in the war. Priest accepted without protest. The rescue became legend. Others tried. Some succeeded. Some failed. Marshall returned to combat, finished the war a decorated commander. Priest flew for decades more, rarely speaking of the wheat field. Years later he wrote that he never weighed the odds. He had simply refused to let his hero disappear into a prison camp. No monument marks the spot. No museum holds the airplane. But the story lived on, passed from pilot to pilot, from father to son. 2 men, 1 cockpit, and a choice made in a moment that refused to let courage die in a French field.